We're very fortunate in Lanark County. We have 13 incredible members of the 2S LGBTQIA community that have agreed to provide you with a glimpse of what it's like living in Lanark County and being a member of the community. Weaving their stories together, this documentary is a record of their insights, struggles, experiences, and most importantly, their hopes for the future.
My name is Laurie Potvant, and I live just outside of Perth. I am a citizen of the Métis Nation of Ontario. My partner Paula and I are legally married. We've been together for 25 years.
I'm Calvin. I'm a trans man. I work as a social justice advocate and researcher and an educator. This is my wife Sharon. We've been married for 15 years.
And I've been teaching here in Perth for the past 14 years.
I'm Abby Nowakowski. I use she, they pronouns. I'm an artist.
I am Elliot Kai. I am non-binary. I'm pansexual. I'm 50 years old.
Hi, my name is Juno. I'm 28 years old. I'm a trans woman and I live in Watson's Corners, Ontario. Hi, my name is Navy. I'm 28 years old. I live in Lanark County, also in Watson's Corners. And I'm an artist in the area.
My name is Michael Reichley Lancaster. I'm the Executive Director Curator of the Mississippi Valley Textile Museum. My pronouns are he, him.
My name's Chris. When you're transgender and you're living in a political climate, what's the trans agenda? The trans agenda is that people can be who they are and express who they are in a way that's positive and good for them.
My name is Aria Deepwater, and I am queer, pansexual, and disabled.
My name is Ian. I live in Lanark County.
Yeah, my name is Corey Earl, and I live in the rural area, but grew up in the area as well. So.
My name's Evan. My pronouns are they, them.
I like living in Lanark County. It's really, I live rural, so I don't live in any of the towns. And to have like nature so close and available, and like the landscape that it is, has been amazing in terms of like connecting to self and nature. Most of my neighbors, well, all of my neighbors actually, are really good people, and you know, we look out for each other and help each other out with the power failures, and so it's been good that way. Haven't really experienced anything like outwardly prejudice within Lanark County.
You have a functional disability that means stable employment and therefore stable income is very, very difficult. And so I actually now share a house with my 80-year-old mother, and it's a pokey little cottage on a lake, but it is stable and it's gorgeous and it's wonderful, and I do spend a lot of time there. And so I do find community very challenging because I don't get out of the house much. I just, my stamina doesn't allow for a lot of social interaction.
Yeah, I love living here for so many reasons. Like, I mean, I think for one, it just kind of feels like home. Like, I grew up sort of nearby, south of Ottawa, and I think it's really nice to be living in a community that, yeah, just simply feels like home. Like, my family lives nearby. We all have similar, like, kind of funny Ottawa Valley accents. It's nice to, yeah, live in the community that I grew up in and not have to feel like I needed to leave or live away from the community to kind of be myself. Like, there is a place for me here. So I think that's really special. And then just outside of that, like, I love the woods and the swamps and the rivers and access to skiing. I'm an environmental scientist by training. We garden and homestead and take care of animals. Yeah, and I also play a lot of music. I am a bluegrass musician.
I moved here in 1968. I'm in the same house. My partner and I bought a farm, and we were interested in sharing with like-minded friends. You know, apart from the 7 years of my marriage, you know, I was having relationships with men. And, you know, I realize now that, you know, there was never any thought, ever any thought, that I wouldn't be getting married, having kids, you know. Another friend much more recently asked me, Ian, have you always known that you were gay? And the question, I had to flat out and say, no, I didn't know that. That word didn't exist, really. Wasn't in current use, really, when I was growing up. I was almost retirement age when I finally and completely came out. And oh, what a relief. What a regret that I didn't come out much sooner. My younger son said to me when I came out, Ian, why didn't you do this 20 years ago? That's a really good question, because we all come out when we can and at the right moment. When you come out, you start a process of coming out for the rest of your life, and being honest and truthful in that way with the people that you meet.
I like living here so much. I hope I live in Lanark forever. I grew up in Alberta and had never been to Lanark County until the day I moved here. And I think that it's a great place to live, and I'm trying to convince my parents to move here. I'm trying to convince my sister to move here. I think that it is a better place to live than where we had been living as a family growing up. I was in my gay-straight alliance as a straight person in high school. So moving from an adolescent who was in the closet to a 20-year-old who started experimenting with coming out to like one member of my family at a time, to now being 28 and being fully out with like all of my family and all of my community and like everywhere that I'm involved with as a worker. That's like a huge change over the past 10 years for me.
Yeah, so we knew we wanted to adopt. So we adopted our son about 9 years ago through the Children's Aid Society. And we weren't sure how that was going to go in a small town locally. You know, and they ask very direct questions. They go into very extreme detail about every aspect of your life. So, you know, clearly they're very aware. We're a trans couple and identify as asexual as well. So that came out in all the conversations, and didn't know how would they take this? Will this impede our opportunity to be parents? It didn't in the slightest. You know, our experience was amazing. It was so positive. They were, you know, clearly very open to diversity. There was I never felt any judgment about any aspect of who I am or who we are.
If anything, I think that they were just concerned because we're vegan. You know, it was more, that was a bigger deal. They asked the question, well, you know, if the birth family wanted to take him to, say, a McDonald's, would you be okay with that? I'm thinking, do we have to be okay with McDonald's to be parents? Like, is that a prerequisite? But otherwise, it was just a very affirming process. They were very well educated about the different kinds of families that exist, and it was just a non-issue. And so many things in this community, for us and our experience, have been a non-issue. You know, we don't necessarily experience a whole lot of discrimination living in Lanark County or living in Perth, and a lot of that is because it's a very healthy community and because of the work of advocates and educators in the community. But also we are aware that part of the reason is that we sort of have the appearance of being heteronormative. You know, we don't look different, so we look like people expect a couple to look. So we sort of struggle with that because it's almost like unearned privilege. And it's not really fair that we would be free from a lot of the prejudice and discrimination that others might face if they look a certain way, or look different, or look non-normative. And for us, that's one of the reasons that we think it's important to share our stories and to contribute to building that awareness. If people can look at us and think, well, I understand and I accept through hearing your story, then that will help them to understand and accept the next person.
I grew up in Deep River as this queer little kid out, you know, running the bush, feeling different, but there wasn't anyone out, you know, in Deep River or where I grew up that looked like me. When I grew up, I just knew that I was different, and I didn't quite know until I was a younger teen And then you start looking at girls, and I wasn't looking at boys the same way I looked at girls. So then I kind of knew who I was, but also being in a small town, there was no way that I felt that I could come out. Like, who was I going to come out to? So I just kept that hidden, but I just knew that there was someone out there like myself. So when I got to Ottawa, it was just amazing. It was like I had found my team, and that was literally, I found my team. I went to the softball park. There was a couple of teams of women that were only gay women at that time. It was in the 70s, early 80s.
I grew up in Perth, Ontario, but now live here in Sharper Lake with my partner Beth. Beth and I met when we were in Guelph, so we kind of started a family there. I came out when I was still in Guelph, so I hadn't really returned back home. So when my partner Beth actually suggested moving closer to my family, I was a little hesitant, because I didn't know what other people's perceptions would be. I didn't want to explain myself. I just kind of was really comfortable with who I was when I was in Guelph. Guelph is also a very queer-centered city. So most of your friends just happen to be queer because that's who is living there. So scared at first, but super happy to be back. It feels more like home now than it ever did before.
Wow.
Yeah. After I came out, I think it unleashed, a lot of self-expression. As an artist, I was able to tap into my truer self when creating, and has helped me in my artistic practice. I feel before I came out, I always felt a slight emptiness that I couldn't quite place or understand, but there was something missing.
I never thought coming out was really an option, and so when I came out, it took me over 20 years. I just turned 38, and when I reflect on that, the moment, it was probably one of the hardest days of my life, because when I opened up to my family and said, I am gay in a person, I didn't come out and say I was gay because I knew that was not a word that, because I grew up in a family that necessarily didn't believe in that aspect. So when I finally came out, I said I'm dating someone, and I'll never forget the moment when the family member looked at me and said, "What is his name?" And then I was just like, that was probably the more relief moments for me, and it felt like that my world had changed, because now I was not able to hide or keep a lie that I've lied to myself over the past several years, just because I thought that I would lose a lot of support. My grandpa at the time, he didn't talk to me because that generation was just was like, well, and then he turned around and took 24 hours, and the next day he turned around and looked at me and said, your partner and you will always be welcome into my home. That was an eye-opener for me. While it felt that it was a relief and the burden was off of my shoulders, it really did feel like, why did I have to wait for 20 years just to be able to come out? And if I would have done it sooner, what would it have been like, where I'm telling people, hey, be who you are, come on out.
Examining who I was throughout the course of these years, there was always an admission, but the admission could never get past who I was at the time, the name that I was at the time, the name that I was associated with, and the community that I was associated with. So I have been out, but also not out. A lot of that has been dependent upon the communities that I have been in and the individuals that I'm surrounded with. Within the context of original family, out was simply not an option. And it hasn't been an option up until 2021, but it was always challenging being who I was and wrestling with the reality of a family who never would accept who that person is.
I grew up in Lanark County. I grew up in McDonald's Corner, so I went to school in Lanark and in Perth, and so I have a pretty long history with the county in one way. So I came out in high school, and at the time was trying to like, you know, do some kind of like just visibility action in high school, which was like always an interesting ride. At that time, and I think we've kind of looped back around, I'm old enough to start to see the cyclical nature of sort of like the politics of talking to kids about queerness. Like at that time, I think there was a lot of anxiety with about, okay, well, like that's great, like speak up for yourself, but like the teachers, a lot of them did not want to be sort of associated with it in case it reflected poorly on them, you know. And you know, and certainly there were teachers who were very supportive, but that was definitely an aspect of it that I experienced. And I certainly feel for people who are in that position today, because you know, as we see, it's time is a flat circle.
I came out while I was in museum studies in Ottawa, and I came out first to closest friends, but you also learned very quickly who your friends were. But it was such a weight lifted when I did come out, and especially when I finally bit the bullet and came out to my parents, but I came out over the phone. This is before cell phones. And it was tough, because it was about a year of calling me at my work and yelling at me for what I've done, and very angry and saying you're going to burn in hell, and all the typical, I don't want to say typical Christian behavior, but it was very difficult for a year. And finally I said, this is over, our relationship. If you don't change, we're done. And they turned around and said, no, we want to come meet you and your partner, and came up, and we met halfway in Toronto, and it was slow going, but now we have such a wonderful relationship. And when I came out, it was also AIDS and that scare, and so you were scared to even like be yourself. It felt like it was, if you come out, you're gonna die, and it was just that extra scare.
To my great surprise, in the amount of time that I was away from home, there's been a lot of people doing a lot of work to make like Perth and the surrounding area like a really safe haven, and I think also a lot of folks have changed their mindset, you know, in years, so people are slowly becoming more comfortable with themselves.
It's often very difficult to find the queers. Where are my people? Go find your people, stay with your people, and have that part of your life active, because I really have missed that. I have not had a chance to explore and develop and meet people and have the community that I crave and love, and we all crave and love in whatever way that's right for us. But I haven't had that chance nearly as much as I wanted to and needed. Then I discovered, driving through Perth at the right time, the banner. We have a parade! And it turns out, you know, that level of visibility happened about a year after I went spelunking on the internet to find you. So that has changed, and I love that. And I have really enjoyed watching that level of visibility blossom and bloom. I've loved watching you on stage at this year's parade talking about the level of support and engagement and the very low levels of negativity that came in our direction, particularly this year. Learning to find community in ways that aren't as traditional as we thought. I am constantly asking myself that. What is community when one struggles with social isolation and being able to get out? But when I have had a chance to come out to community, it's been very welcoming, and I love it here.
It's such a great community, a really healthy community, and a lot of that is the work of groups like Queer Connection Lanark. These things don't just happen, they don't manifest magically. It's the hard work that people have put into their communities, and the importance of visibility. Because people need to know that we are your neighbors, we are your family members.
Most of my community is in the town of Perth, and I think we just have a really good, welcoming and open community. I found it easy to make friends here and kind of tap into different social networks, and people are creative and silly and love to make things and love to do things together and do a lot of organic community building, and yeah, it's been a really good community for me over the last few years. Yeah, I love it.
Actually, quite a few of our friends who are also not local to the area originally have relocated their parents to the area, which I thought was great, and I like living here so much. I hope I live in Lanark forever. I
met elders when we moved here, just walking down the street. Like, I used to walk every day from our house over onto the Glen Isle and then up the road to the point on the river and back. And I guess I did the walk enough times that there were two older queer ladies living on that road, and I walked by their house one day, and it was in June, and they waved to me and they said, "Happy Pride!" So they became our like friends and neighbors, and yeah, it was great. We like built so many connections, even in that first year during the pandemic as well, when it was like difficult to get to know folks. But yeah, seeing all these like queer elders like living their lives, it was really inspiring and just really beautiful to see that as like a model of how I can survive, you know.
There's a community everywhere you look, I think.
That's a really tricky question, because I feel I don't have yet the wisdom, you know, that I'm still learning about, you know, my path, and I probably would tell my younger self that I don't want to say like it's okay to be who you are, because that's so cliche and to the point. I want to say something like more, like something like what you are doing now is the right thing. Like the journey that you are on now is the right direction that you need to be on. Like it's more than okay. It's where you need to be. So yeah, I would just like, you know, be the cheerleader for my younger self that maybe I didn't have, and it's okay to not know everything. Like sit in that like uncomfortable feeling of not knowing, and I think we can think of it less like binaries. You know, we talk a lot about love on a spectrum. You know, there's less rigid lines when you're open to your queerness, right? You don't necessarily have to be gay, lesbian, trans. You can kind of play in this world, you know, like you can kind of dip your toes in one thing, and you know, if you have a really rich support system, that support system will help you through, you know, that exploration and play and curiosity of it all. So don't I would maybe suggest, don't be too worried about making a change or voicing how you feel, in being afraid of if that might not be right. You know, you can kind of come out as who you are in that moment, and that coming out can just continuously, you know, unfold in new and exciting ways. I keep on wanting to say it's okay. Of course it's okay to be gay. It's great to be gay. Yeah. Is maybe what I would want to say to my younger self. Yeah.
For me, tell the truth. When we hide, when we keep secrets, it does so much damage. It does damage to ourselves. It does damage to our relationships, to our families. When I used to talk to students in schools, and I would, talk about how a lot of young people are afraid to tell their parents the truth about themselves. And so they keep secrets and they think that this is protecting their parents. But actually it's not. The best gift you can give to yourself and to anybody that you love is the gift of the truth. And that you're doing your parents no favors to deny them the opportunity to know who their child is. It is scary, but what's scarier is the fear of the truth. Once you face it, once you voice it, then you can actually just face that and move forward. It might be difficult, you might have to get over some hurdles, you might have to be patient with people in your lives as they come through the process of understanding, and have compassion for people in your lives as they go through that process, but be confident in who you are and what your truth is, and be proud and love yourself and give other people the gift of having that opportunity to know you and to love you for who you are.
If I'm going to be Corey today, I need to be Corey every day and not just be a fake Corey. Just be who you are.
You don't have to change things about yourself to fit in to, big cities. Like, I lived in big cities for about 6 years. I don't have to change all these things about myself to fit in and kind of exist away from home. So it was a really nice, integration, just to not be scared, just you can come home and kind of be a full person and be integrated into your community and and put down roots here and not feel like you need to run away.
What would I say to my younger self? I think, I don't know. I think that my younger self was very angry, and I find that I've found more constructive ways to express that anger, which is usually through just it being motivation to do something and to do something different, and to not let anger paralyze you, I think, because as much as that emotion has a reputation for maybe making people impulsive and do things, I think that it can also be a difficult emotion to process because you don't know how to let it out in a way that is going to be the most healthy, the most beneficial to your situation.
What I would say to my younger self is that there's a broader community out there, that to not be afraid, to be proud of who you are, and know that you are deserving and you are worthy of a good life. Yeah, So I think maybe my younger self has to tell my older self to take a deep breath and join hands with the community to make that community stronger, so we can stand up and say, we're here and we're deserving.
Be who you are. Do it right away. Don't wait. Don't be afraid.
My younger self is actually a really good associate to have with me, a really good companion. We've both been through a lot of really difficult, challenging things, and we both have walked out the other end of it with a better perception of who we are, or who I am. And I've been able to, actually both of us have been able to put the heart of that child back together, because that child lived with a broken heart for many years. So, excuse me, I do tell my younger self, who is always with me at all times, that they were validated. They are right. The pain they suffered was never deserved. They didn't deserve it. And that all the standing up they did to try and either communicate who they were or defend who they were was courageous. Very courageous. And the right thing to do, despite what was oftentimes exceptionally negative reactions. That child didn't deserve to suffer. that child did, but we have both grown together. So what I tell my younger self every single day is that I deeply respect that child and I love that child.
That it changes. That you're not like this weird thing that just because you didn't understand that you weren't excluded or forgotten, that there were people out there that like understand you, and that, you know, you just haven't crossed their paths yet.
Yeah, change is a really interesting thing. It's kind of an odd thing to live with because it can happen without you being aware of it, but you can also be stuck in moments where you believe there is no actual change going on, but there is. Change is constant. It has no choice but to develop and to progress, and anytime you have some kind of progression or any kind of behavior associated with yourself, you oftentimes take 2 steps forward and end up taking at least 1 step backwards at one point to reassess where you're going. If I were to look at changes in myself, it has to do with not pretending to be something other than what I was, or other than what I am. To drop the facade that is in place in order to placate individuals or portions of a community or portions of institutions that struggle with understanding that knowledge. The most important change I see in myself is what they're struggling with just doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. Specifically when you have communities that are not backing down anymore. Yeah, that's significant. That is very significant. The changes I've seen in the various small town Ontario communities that I either have directly engaged with or have simply passed through over the years is phenomenal and is exciting. There's tons of information out there, and there's tons of individuals who are more than happy to explain the realities of being who you are in your authentic self. All it takes is for those individuals to develop hopefully some empathy and be willing to listen.
I'm feeling empowered to see youth be who they are at a younger age.
Coming out has been nothing but positive for me. It was like an overnight change from spending a lot of my life trying not to look gay, trying not to sound gay, being embarrassed at an earlier stage if the gay subject came up. I'd have to get up and go to the washroom and just leave the room and not get into that discussion. And being honest and truthful in that way for the rest of your life with the people that you meet as your life progresses. And that's certainly been very true for me. And I've been very lucky for not having any huge adverse reactions in a reactionary world to a simple little subject of being myself.
Given the situation in the States and the hatred that is posted in social media and perpetuated and expressed outside of social media, I fear for myself.
15 years ago, there was not a lot of awareness, and one of my presentations that I would give was the LGBTQIQ2SAA labyrinth, and it begins very slowly through the more familiar identities, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and on into some of the things that people are perhaps a little less familiar with. And it was sort of a 101 presentation, and then over the years I started to feel like now they are really well aware of the different people who exist out there, the terms, the identities, to the point where I started to feel maybe I don't need to be doing this anymore because it seems like the students almost know more than I do about some of these things, and I'm learning from them. So it was a great process to go through, to see that growth, that level of awareness growing, And then in recent years, there seems to be almost a backward trajectory, not in terms of awareness, that is still there, but in terms of a bit of a pushback. And I think that that's almost like taking the temperature. As awareness grows, as the conversation opens up, then there will be more exposure of, people who still resist accepting or understanding or even wanting to understand. In all my presentations, I would always say, these are just the identities that exist, these are the people that exist. What you do with that information is up to you. I was never there to tell anybody what to think about any of this, but I exist, we exist, and that's what the education is about. Just as, you talk about making books available about different types of families. It could be a single parent family, it could be a mixed race family. It's just about talking about diversity, not trying to push anything on anybody. And what people do with their understanding of the kinds of people that exist is really up to them. But I always ended my presentations with, the most important thing is to be good and to be kind. And if you get that right, you've got it all right. And if you get that wrong, you've got it all wrong.
And then in terms of change overall, I was 19 and what do the math? I was 19 in 91. So there's been a lot of changes since then, and it really does boil down to visibility, I think, in terms of the ability to see ourselves in the media, the ability to speak of ourselves openly and honestly, and it's chicken and the egg. You can't tell. It's all part of the work. It's all part of the work and the growth and the change. But visibility is the biggest change I've seen over the last few decades, for sure. I'm very scared right now for the violence that's happening to our trans siblings, specifically, but in general, against the queer community. And populism is rising, and conservatism is rising, and that's going to continue to happen.
During pandemic, when I saw challenges of, I can't imagine what anyone was going through who couldn't be themselves but had to move back home during COVID. And so that made me go, wait a minute, I can do more. So coming out even louder in the community, if you will, and showcasing that the museum's a safe place, getting the museum rainbow registered, doing things to make sure people know that this is a safe space, but also ensuring that the people involved here, volunteer staff, are well versed in knowledge, so that they can also portray that, and really putting myself out there, moments where it was scary when vandalism would happen, or we'd get horrible phone calls to the museum of hatred, but still knowing it's the right thing to do.
I find that people are really eager to learn when they meet us if they don't have a lot of experience. When I first came out, it was really difficult to access medical care and to find a doctor that you trusted. Yeah. And when we moved here, a lot of our medical care was in the city or in Canada or in Orleans, and we'd have to travel quite far. And I found that since we've gotten into the clinic in Perth, yeah, our providers are maybe not the most experienced with trans healthcare, but they're very eager to learn and they're very supportive. Like, we've had 2 different care, primary care providers at the health clinic in Perth, and both of them were willing to take over our treatment so that we wouldn't have to drive into the city to see specialists anymore. Yeah.
Well, even contrasting that with my experience in Montreal when I first came out, which was not that long ago, 6 or 7 years ago, and I was essentially competing with every other trans person in the city to access the one doctor who was willing to prescribe HRT at that point. Yeah. And he was an older gentleman, he was in his 70s, he didn't work every day. It was, so it's interesting to see how much it's changed, that here in a small community we have a great medical office with great medical practitioners who are willing to learn and try and kind of support you. We don't have to compete with each other for access to care, I think it's gotten a lot better in Montreal since then, but even 6-7 years ago, it was still challenging to access.
We met people through playing music, through joining a softball team, and recently we even had a meeting at the softball league to change one of their policies from being a male-female alternating rule to being a gender alternating rule.
Lanark Village Co-ed Softball Beer League, now inclusive.
Yes.
And then I came back to the county after quite a few years living in other places near and far, you know, both within Ontario and New Brunswick, and then also Australia. I came back from Australia in 2015 and kind of was like restarting socially because I didn't have like my friends in the area. And it was also a time I was kind of like, you know, like, these pronouns aren't working for me. And so it was both a process of like reintroducing myself to people that I had known for a long time, especially, you know, like my old teachers and things like that in the area that I was coming back to. And also that because I was meeting like, you know, the new group of millennials that existed in town who were not people who had grown up here, and that I was able to just kind of have a fresh start and be like, hey, my name's Evan, my pronouns are they, them. And that was kind of, that's kind of amazing, right? And I think partly you really see how the power of like one person being able to like pick that up and be consistent with like that's how they refer to you if they make a mistake, that they correct themselves, how that changes, you know, everybody in a social group, in a workplace, especially, you know, workplaces tend to be kind of hierarchical, so it really the impact of somebody who's in like a supervisor role, really picking that up and being really consistent and making sure they correct themselves, because it's not the expectation that you get everything perfect, it's the expectation that you show that this is important to you and that I'm important to you, and that you would react the way you would react if you made a simple mistake like that about anybody else in the workplace. If you said the wrong pronoun, if you said the wrong name, you would, you know, you'd have a moment of, oh, I'm so sorry I said that, let's correct and move on, right? Yeah, so that's, I think, really, it's been really interesting and in a lot of cases really amazing to see like who has been the person in any given group of people who really like picks it up and kind of sets the tone, right? I really feel for teachers in this climate, both like queer and allied teachers are in a really tough position, and I felt a little bit of that myself. A lot of the work that I have done both in this county and in general has been with kids. And actually this afternoon I was walking down the street with my girlfriend, and we ran into a group of 3 teenagers, and 2 of them were kids who were in 2 different programs that I worked in at one point. One was in a program that I worked in like way back. I was in high school. I was the age she is now. And the other one was in a program that I worked at when I was just returning to Perth, so 2015, 2016. And one of those kids asked, oh, is this your partner? And I was like, yeah, this is my partner. And I realized as they were walking away, first of all, I was like, that was so sweet. I had like, this moment with my girlfriend. It was like, that was so nice. They were such sweet kids. And also realizing that there are other contexts where that might have like put me a bit like more anxious, right? To say that to somebody who had been like in a teaching role with. You know, first of all, if I was still working in the program, if I didn't know what my boss's position were, and if I didn't know these kids' parents, I happened to know all of those things in this situation, so I knew there was nothing to worry about. But certainly, you know, I remember just in that same program that I was with a little girl and we were skipping, you know, and you do the rhyme of, and you have to like name based on the letter, like who you're gonna marry, and I was like, Alice. And she's like, you can't marry a girl? And then I was like, do I tell her? And I was like, I literally can. Whoa!
You know, I'm getting married next year for the first time. Not that I've been married before, but right? And I would have never done that had I felt confidence, knowing that we had a law that really changed that aspect. So those are the changes I've seen. I've also seen changes for society or some aspect where people are starting to finally find their voice, and that they're starting to finally feel that they're coming out Whereas at times we felt like silos, and now I feel that society is saying, hey, well, we need to support people to be able to live in the community and be able to be who they are. And those are some of the changes I've seen versus even 7-8 years ago. So we've made a lot of great progress as a community, as a country, but it also is because we work with organizations and society, people who once were opposed to it now have loved ones that have come out. And I think, unless you know someone, it truly does change who you are. And I think that's what I've really seen strongly. When I got involved in the community over a decade ago, one of the first things that people had said to me is, good luck, because you're going to lose a lot of support in the community. And in fact, I gained a lot more support versus actually losing support. And to me, if that would have been the 1990s or even early 2000s, sure, that might have been the case. But so there's definitely, the support is there more than it ever used to be.
For me, as a teacher of young children, I definitely notice a lot more awareness from the kids and the families just about queer stuff, LGBT type of stuff, and a lot more students identifying from an earlier age about being non-binary or questioning gender and things like that. And those conversations coming up a lot more often in kindergarten, even, or grade 1, because we know even before starting school they already have a concept of, or I'm a boy, I'm a girl, or I'm neither, I'm both. And so more and more we're having these conversations in the classroom, and I'm finding it really important as a teacher to have books that show kids other people who feel like them and represent them. Not it's not a big deal, it's not this scary thing, it's just these other people exist, including you in my class right now, or your brother, your sibling, or your parent, and being able to talk about those really openly. And the kids, they just take it as it is. Oh, okay, cool. No judgment, no questioning from them. But with that also comes, there are more and more families or, parents who might be concerned that those topics are coming up the past few years, I would say. So we've had a few families, getting concerned that we're, might be reading a read aloud that talks about gender diversity, for example. And it's, but I think it's my role as an educator to educate the students and as well as their families if they have those questions, and just to open the dialogue and make sure we're both being respectful. And I want the kids to know you don't need to hide who you are. There's nothing to be ashamed of. This is normal. Like, you are you, I am me. This is not anything unusual that we're talking about here. It's just you and who you are. And making that more obvious to the parents sometimes can be challenging because they might think it's a bigger deal than it really is.
With some of the changes that I saw, 20 some years ago or more, where we were allowed to have our same-sex partner put on our medical benefits and our pension plans, and then those changes where we are allowed to marry and become legally married. And I think in making this film for other people to understand who I am, that is a step in that right direction. That's love, and I think that we need to spread love and make those choices when it comes down to, you've got a choice to act in, to be in an inclusive way, loving way, or an exclusive, harmful way. And if we think before we speak, we get to where we know what the right answer is, the right approach is. So
I guess maybe in the 60s, gay people were much more out front about their lives and trying to reclaim their rights as human beings. I missed a lot of that. So I missed getting into the camp world. I missed the changes, certainly in the gay world over the last 50 years are extreme and great. The whole gay movement is much more recent. And not that homosexuality didn't exist down through the ages in every race and probably in the entire animal kingdom, but so I didn't really realize, I just knew that I liked being with guys and it was fun.
There are more resources. There are more people out there who are in pop culture, etc., that are showing themselves, their true selves, and not hiding it, which is so different from back in the day. I mean, you never saw that. That was not in pop culture.
Our medical teams in the county really need to kind of step back and think about how they interact with LGBT, non-binary, transgender, two-spirit, queer, intersex. I've been severely mistreated, and that wasn't me. Or maybe it was, I don't know.
It's real life. Things happen.
Life, yeah. That was like the medical team kind of texting me going, what the hell? Like, when you experience the hatred elsewhere, it just follows you, right? So like when you're navigating in public spaces, it follows you. So like I've been attacked, not so much physically, but like verbally for using a bathroom. And now I won't use public bathrooms, because if they're genderized public bathrooms, it doesn't matter which bathroom I choose to use, I get attacked for it. So it comes with you, and I don't think people understand that like when you experience it, even if it's not in your like local area, it follows you. Spaces that are safe and that you know in your heart of hearts that it's safe, it just like permeates and infiltrates your life. So I guess it's been a mixed bag living in Lanark. I mean, I don't have people making like slanderous comments to my face, or trying to get in my face because I present the way I do. But then, like, I have other instances where, like, I feel targeted and not understood and separated and told by medical people that, like, I shouldn't transition because of their experience with somebody who has transitioned. And I'm not even in there because I'm transitioning. I'm in there because, like, I have a bladder infection. So it's like the people that you think would have the most compassion, and the place where you're always taught all of your life that you'll be safe there, is a place that for me is not safe at all.
I was in a washroom, and someone had called the manager of the bar that we were in to come and get the man out of the woman's washroom, which was me. And so I've had this bathroom experience that, and sometimes I'm still fearful, do a double quick breath before I go into washroom. So I so appreciate those washrooms that are unisex, like at Starbucks.
I would really like everyone to simply be able to get along. That would be fantastic. There's always going to be challenges. There's going to be bumps in the roads. There's going to be all sorts of obstructions in place. There's still going to be battles that need to be fought. But at the end of the day, I deeply love and respect myself. It took me a long time to learn that, and I hope that others who already know it can maintain it, and others who don't know it can come to understand it, because it is the best feeling you can have, your inner child can have, and your community can have. If we can simply be able to walk down the street in a community, no matter how big or small that community is, and nobody feels threatened, nobody feels uncomfortable, nobody is afraid to not be who they are, that would be the future, or even the present, that we would aim for.
So what I hope in the near future is that our better angels win legally, politically, socially, and that visibility and change that we have been seeing is able to at least stabilize and continue. And then growing from there, I want to see a lot of world change. I want to see a lot of changes in our society, but continuing to be able to hold space in public and be safe. I mean, I really fundamentally believe that queer people and queer disabled people are the future, because we can see a world that is better. Our whole existence is a speculative exercise in what makes the world better, and or how can the world be better. And so to continue to do that and to see queer ecology come forward in science and nature and climate action, and be able to question the binary and the heteronormativity scripts everywhere, and just start breaking down those barriers. I think we can do it. I think we are doing it. And it's just a question of working towards the safety.
Well, I have great hope that for the equality of men, you know, of humankind, that you know, it's just crazy to me that all throughout the world we're fighting, we're warring, we're trying to make money over somebody else, you know, to not still be a cohesive unit just seems crazy to me, and I just can't see why we as humans throughout every country can't be that way too.
Yeah.
So that's what I hope for in the future.
Yeah. Showing kindness and being welcoming and loving to the other, and understanding that we are all truly different people, and we carry our own burdens and pains, but we also carry our own love and our own hopes and dreams for the future.
Is that people can be who they are and express who they are in a way that's positive and good for them.
I hope to continue to make Lanark County a place where people feel like they can stay.
Yeah.
I find that we meet great people, and great people from the 2S LGBTQ community that pass through and that really do appreciate it here and want to stay, and I want to make it easier to make that possible and to make the community that we're growing together welcoming, and to benefit from people who are able to bring in outside skills and outside connections to other communities, so that we can have that kind of solidarity. I would love to just do whatever I can to make that happen.
I agree with you. Like, I hope we can continue to welcome people in the same way that we were welcomed here. And the way that we were welcomed in, like, so seamlessly, like, kind of being trans was just kind of besides the point. So that was special and not something that I really ever experienced before. So hoping that we can, help other queer folks just feel safe and feel like if you want to live like this little country life and, like exist in a small town, and like this is a really great community to be doing that, and just like support people, make it feel like a place to stay where we can put down roots. And
I think a lot of prejudice and fear and phobia comes from not understanding, and not understanding comes from not having encountered or not knowing. Once you meet somebody and understand them, you love them and you come to appreciate them, and then that helps you to understand others as well. So,
to me, it's being able to be anywhere I want to be with my husband, and we can be affectionate as anyone else can be, in public and in private, and be safe, and not feel like looking around our shoulder. And I think some people would think, well, no, everything's fine, and it's not. I mean, we still go places and we will get heckled if we're holding hands. We will get the comments, and we're at an age now where it's like, oh, well, whatever, but it still hurts. It doesn't matter what age you are, it still hurts. It doesn't matter how long you've been out.
Can you tell us a bit about the backdrop there?
It's artist Carl Stewart, and what he's done in this exhibition is each woven piece represents, I believe it's 65 different countries where it's still illegal to be LGBT, and where some countries it's some of these countries it's totally acceptable to murder LGBTQ people. And so really showcasing that in this way of beautiful weaving, which it's a textile museum, it fits into textiles, but also to tell that truth. It might shock people, yes, which is okay. But it's telling that truth and telling that, yes, we're still a vulnerable community because some countries, we're not allowed to go visit. It always shocks my friends when they talk about, let's all go on a trip to such and such place. And I say I have to look it up to see if I can go there and have to research it thoroughly. And then I have to tell them, I can't go to that country. I'm not safe there. And it opens a conversation that they don't realize is true. So we want to put more of that truth out there so people learn and grow.
I would love for, more folks maybe who have moved away from this area to feel like they could be more comfortable in themselves, to see that there is change happening here. There's space for them, and there's like home for them, that they belong here. And then I also hope that, our, straight allies support us. They see us, want to be a part of our lives, celebrate us. Yeah. Small little victories go a long way. Yeah.
There is so much unity that is in place with individuals who are carrying their own personal journeys, their own experiences, and what they want to change in order to establish and maintain a inclusive society that is beneficial for the generations that are coming up behind us. Because that, as much as I want my future to be a wonderful thing, none of us want those generations to go through variations of what we experienced. So rainbow crosswalks, rainbow pride flags, individuals being open, community programs, safe spaces, all those things are valid, all those things are real, and all those things are significantly important. And I'm so happy to be able to walk around a community that I'm currently in right now that I have a long history with. I can see the old community, but I can see it dissipating, and I can see the new community, and I can see it spreading like flowers.